This is We On World is One. We are glad you're watching. Thank you for joining us at this hour. I'm Eric Njoka. Our top stories. Russia releases video showing aerial combat from its capture of the city of Toretsk. The key mining town in Donetsk is reduced to ruins. This is the biggest Ukrainian town Russia claims to have taken in recent months. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims Putin is preparing not for peace but for the continuation of the war, says Russia is forming new divisions and developing new military production facilities. Hamas claims Israel's lack of commitment to the Gaza ceasefire has put it in danger of collapse, urges Arab countries not to recognize Israel. Iran-backed group says it does not want to return to war in Gaza. Israeli airstrike targets weapons depot in Syria, claims the storage facility belongs to Hamas. Jubilant crowds greet Palestinian prisoners freed by Israel. 183 prisoners arrived in the occupied West Bank city of Ramallah.
Shri Narendra Modi Zindabad.
In a major political shift, BJP sweeps Delhi, returns to power in India's national capital after 27 years. Saffron Party wins 48 seats, restricts Aam Aadmi Party to 22.
आज आडंबर, अराजकता, अहंकार और दिल्ली पर छाई आपदा की हार हुई। बदल दिया है दिल्ली से।
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses victory speech after historic win in Delhi takes sharp jibe, but Aam Aadmi Party says there is no place for shortcuts or strikes. Kenyan President William Ruto urges all armed forces in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo to immediately cease hostilities as regional leaders met in Tanzania for a peace summit. And ahead of the German parliamentary elections, thousands protest in Munich against the far right.
Chinese artificial intelligence app DeepSeek says Anthony Albanese winning the federal election is in China's best interest. It claims it's due to how fragile the Labor government is and could enable Beijing to potentially exploit policy inertia under the Prime Minister's leadership. It described Mr Albanese as predictable and pragmatic, while opposition leader Peter Dutton was referred to as a traditionalist. DeepSeek was launched as a rival to popular AI platform ChatGPT and is banned from Australia's government systems.
And extremely cold temperatures made battling a house fire in Seattle's Bitter Lake neighborhood particularly challenging.
Yeah, this fire broke out early this morning. Sean Chitness was there, and today he's breaking down the details of this fire.
It was a challenging morning for Seattle Fire. Take a look at the scene that is still here hours later with smoke coming from outside of this house. Both the weather as well as the conditions inside making this a lot of work for the team here. Now take a look at the video that we have from a viewer that shows you what this was looking like early in the morning. Calls coming into 911 around 5:30 about both smoke and flames around this house. Specifically, some of the issues came down to a van and trailer in front of the house, as well as debris inside, all making it harder for firefighters to try and contain this. Now, firefighters did go inside, do an initial review, and find a 55-year-old woman on the second floor. They were able to rush her out and get her to Harborview in critical condition. Crews also then had to evacuate because of all of the debris and the structural damage to this home, the fire eventually spreading to the second floor and attic. So they needed more time to try and get this fire contained. In addition to that, the snow and ice only adding to the challenges as they had to be extra careful and, of course, deal with colder temperatures. Firefighters are investigating the cause, but can't tell us yet what started it. Reporting in Seattle, Sean Chitness, Fox 13 News.
Hate has no place in Cincinnati, and we, all minority groups, are all standing together, and we need to stand together to prevent this from happening in the future.
Outrage off of I-75, where some flags displaying swastikas and hate speech were hung over the interstate today. About, a dozen or so people?
Yeah, about that many. You just heard from the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Cincinnati reacting to not only the hateful display, but also the nearby residents of Evendale and Lincoln Heights who showed up to protest the neo-Nazi demonstration.
Brady Williams is live after talking with the people that live there.
Yeah, so by the time we showed up, there was a Jeep that was smashed to bits right about here in the parking lot, and we're told that that was because there was a lot of anger over what they saw on the bridge just over there. They saw hatred, and they saw racism, and they say that there was a lot of hurt over what they saw here.
Tried to elevate myself and hold myself to a level of responsibility and accountability and charity and business ownership that I could be proud of. And I got to stop at a stop sign and somebody called me the N-word.
Eric Ruffin stared down a group of people holding Nazi flags and guns just a few hundred feet from his business. Anyone who drove along I-75 near Evendale Friday afternoon saw the same thing.
Officially letting you know there is racism in America.
Residents of nearby Lincoln Heights soon arrived to protest the Nazi demonstration.
This is something that we all need to take a stand for. We need them to know this is not the 1960s. This is 2025. We are not playing at this time around.
We're told the people on the bridge came and went in a U-Haul, leaving shortly after locals arrived. Evendale police released a statement that the demonstration, while offensive, was legal. Protesters took issue with that response.
You're allowed to have a protest, but where's your permit? Where's your permission? And then inciting hate, calling people n***s. That's not right.
When Fox 19 arrived, this car had its windows smashed and its tires slashed. Protesters stated that they believed it belonged to one of the men with the Nazi flags.
That's hate. That's what hate is. That's what hate gets you.
Protesters say they were shocked and disgusted by what they saw on that overpass, but their gathering was about standing together.
This is unity. This is all you. Nobody's here to fight. Nobody's here to cause any trouble. Nobody's here to do any of that. But what we're not going to do is have hatred.
This love, like this united. Like we united. Like
I hope that this can change, but you have to realize that this is a big issue.
Protesters say they saw hate and they stood their ground. They say they want to know if the masked people on that bridge will simply retreat without repercussions.
What's going to happen next? That's the question. What happens next?
Hamilton County Sheriff Charmaine McGuffey did put out a statement in the last hour or so, and in that she says that her deputies were on scene. They were here specifically because they wanted to de-escalate the situation. She says that they accomplished that goal. She says also that there is no place for hate in this community. She stated also that they look forward to continuing to collaborate with the people of Lincoln Heights as well as surrounding agencies. Live in Lincoln Heights.
Layla Sweef is a mathematician, a university professor and a political activist. But as she slumped in a folding chair outside the gates of the British Prime Minister's office on day 129 of a hunger strike, she's just a mother trying to win freedom for her son, who has spent more than 5 years in an Egyptian prison. He's accused of spreading false news on social media.
A great majority of mothers are prepared to die for their children. It just takes different forms. But I think most mothers, if your children are in actual danger, you're prepared to die.
Because Abdel Fattah, who's 43, has both British and Egyptian citizenship, Sawif is calling on the UK government to put pressure on their counterparts in Cairo to release him.
I mean, I think one of the reasons why the Egyptian government was not listening to the British or not listening to Egyptian opposition was that they thought that Donald Trump was going to give them a green light to do what they liked. Now that Donald Trump has upset the whole world, they actually need allies.
According to human rights groups, thousands of critics of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi have been locked up under dire conditions after unjust trials.
Over 150 hectares of sugarcane fields have been burnt and the fire continues to spread to other plantations. This follows violent clashes earlier this week between sugarcane cutters at the Société Sucrière du Cameroun and law enforcement. The workers are protesting what they describe as slavery-like conditions.
Nos frères coupeurs s'énervent par rapport au travail.
Our fellow cutters are upset. We work hard and cutting cane is not easy. It's like slavery with pay between jours, even though we're poorly paid. People complain about the workload, but the cane fields are dense and what you see here is nothing. This plant no longer produces because it's near the city. The situation escalated after delays in salary payments. The strike turned violent, resulting in 1 death and around 10 injuries, according to the mayor of Nkoteng. Sosukam has been at a standstill for about 10 days and its operations are affected. The city is heavily militarised and many activities in Nkoteng are slowed down. Around 20 people have been arrested.
Il y a eu des affrontements entre les grévistes et les forces de maintien de l'ordre.
There were clashes between the strikers and law enforcement. One striker died, 5 were injured, and 2 police officers were evacuated. There was also damage to vehicles. The cutters had demands for Sosukam. Some have been addressed, but others are still pending.
Certaines ont connu un aboutissement heureux, et d'autres pas encore.
Images of the unrest have sparked political outrage in Cameroon. In response, crisis meetings are being held to ease tensions. Sosukam, a subsidiary of the French group Somdia, announced Friday that they would increase both the monthly bonuses and base salaries for the workers.
A federal judge blocked Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing sensitive Treasury Department records. Those records contain Social Security and bank account numbers for millions of Americans. A judge issued the preliminary injunction after 19 Democratic attorney generals sued President Trump. The suit alleges the Trump administration gave Musk's team access to the Treasury Department's central payment system in violation of federal law. Despite the name DOGE, it's a task force, not a government agency. Separately, Democratic lawmakers are seeking a Treasury Department investigation of DOGE's access to the government's payment system. And it's not the only pushback the department is actually facing. Senator Maria Cantwell is pointing out what she says is a clear conflict of interest relating to DOGE, specifically about letting Elon Musk and his department into the FAA. Cantwell points out Musk is the owner of SpaceX, an aerospace company, and you may recall in September, she says the FAA fined SpaceX over $600,000 for failing to follow license requirements for 2 launches. She believes Musk wants his hands on the FAA as a form of retribution.
Welcomed in style.
Present! Present!
With a guard of honour and a thumbs up, Defence Minister Richard Marles arrives at the Pentagon.
Well, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, thank you.
And with AUKUS on his mind, this was music to his ears.
Secretary, have you spoken with the President about AUKUS?
The President is very aware, supportive of AUKUS, recognises the importance.
The deal done by Donald Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, with Australia already sending the US its first major payment as part of the pact, $800 million to go towards boosting America's submarine production.
The check did clear.
It did clear, but I want to know that.
It's the first instalment of a near $5 billion contribution, so Australia can then buy second-hand Virginia-class submarines in the 2030s from the US.
We really understand the importance of building our capability, but in paying our way.
This is not a mission in the Indo-Pacific that America can undertake by itself. It has to be robust allies and partners. Technology sharing and subs are a huge part of it.
Richard Marles is the world's first defence minister to meet with his counterpart in the new US cabinet face-to-face. Australia's Foreign Minister Penny Wong also met with President Trump's top diplomat the day after the inauguration. It's an encouraging sign as Australia tries to cement ties with this new administration.
It was a really good meeting with Secretary Hegseth today. I'm really looking forward to pursuing my relationship with him.
But will the US deliver the subs to Australia on time?
Well, we sure hope so.
Cayman Gok, ABC News, Washington.
Arriving at the Pentagon, a relieved Richard Marles.
Really good to see you. Oh, it's a pleasure.
Tonight, confirmation Donald Trump supports our $368 billion AUKUS agreement. The Defence Minister overjoyed.
He has charged me with making sure this is as robust an alliance as we have in the entire world.
Australia making our first down payment on nuclear subs.
The check did clear.
It did clear, but I want to know that.
$800 million paid well before it was due.
It's very hard to think that there'd be anything but supportive when an Australian government minister turns up with a suitcase full of $800 million of cash and hands it over.
As China increases its presence in the Indo-Pacific, the Prime Minister of the Cook Islands in Beijing signing a new security agreement.
There is definitely an appreciation of the challenges to the rules-based order that we see within our region.
But questions about the Trump administration's unpredictability and whether the US president will honour cost and delivery arrangements were dismissed.
Hearing 3 weeks in that he's supportive of something doesn't mean he's not going to turn on a dime several times over the next 4 years.
Australia due to get its first sub in the 2030s.
Secretary, will you deliver Australia's first nuclear submarine on time?
Well, we sure hope so.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
Poland will not fully implement the European Pact on Migration and Asylum. Prime Minister Donald Tusk made the announcement while speaking right next to the main proponent of the legislation, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, during a meeting in Poland on Friday.
Powiedziałem to Polakom niedawno w sposób jednoznaczny i powtórzyłem to dzisiaj pani przewodniczącej i cieszę się, że moja argumentacja znalazła też słuch i zrozumienie, że Polska nie będzie implementowała paktu migracyjnego w sposób, który by spowodował dodatkowe jakiekolwiek kwoty migrantów w Polsce.
This position is not new, as Poland's previous government already opposed the relocation policy. Tusk argues that Poland already hosts a large number of Ukrainian refugees who fled the war with Russia. Von der Leyen said the pact had to be implemented, but added that Poland's worries will be borne in mind.
Poland is under great pressure from the hybrid attacks of the regime Belarus and Russia. They cynically exploit human despair. They lure migrants to the border with the cooperation of smugglers and traffickers and criminal networks.
While holding the presidency of the Council of the EU, Poland seems to be trying to secure some exemptions to the pact, such as having some asylum seekers relocated to other member states.
Polska uczyniła bezpieczeństwo swoim głównym sloganem prezydencji. To bezpieczeństwo oznacza również restrykcyjną politykę migracyjną. Na ile jednak Komisja Europejska przychyli się do ambitnych planów polskiej prezydencji, na tę odpowiedź przyjdzie nam czekać kilka miesięcy. Teraz jednak jasne jest również to, że polityka migracyjna jest głównym tematem nadchodzącej kampanii przed wyborami prezydenckimi w Polsce. Z Gdańska dla Euronews Dominika Ciosic.
The conflict between Russia and Ukraine escalated almost 3 years ago. Europe faced a shock realisation that security could not be taken for granted. Militaries, which have been stripped back for years, found themselves needing to be ready for battle, including Germany, where civilians are now being trained for a worst-case scenario.
They say the trick is to remain calm. All the more vital when you're protecting your homeland. On the firing range today, an IT consultant, a mum, a guy in shipping. Civilians being trained to defend Germany in a crisis.
The situation in Europe has changed because of the war in Ukraine. So now where whole areas are changing and we need to get ready for maybe a war in the future, we need to fill up our reserves.
After Russia invaded Ukraine, Germany pledged 100 billion euros to transform its military. That included boosting the numbers of troops and reservists like these. Like many here, office worker David signed up after war returned to Europe.
The invasion of Ukraine by Russia, I think that was definitely the motivating factor, because they're systematically trying to undermine the world order, crossing every red line that we have drawn up as a result of the experience in World War I, World War II, you know, not executing prisoners, not torturing, not raping.
Putin's invasion of Ukraine shocked Germany into reprioritizing defense. Military chiefs warn Russia may be strong enough to attack a NATO country in 5 years, meaning Germany needs to be war ready and fast.
I'm really convinced that this plan will work.
When it comes to responding to the new threats, Lieutenant General Andrei Bodeman is a man with a plan. He's helped draw up a new top-secret defence document. It covers everything from moving German and NATO troops through the country to mobilising civilians.
Would you say this is the most dangerous period in terms of risk of war for Germany since the Cold War?
Yes, definitely. We cannot lose time. We have to start now. We already started, and we have to speed up to be ready before Russia is ready.
So with Putin not pulling any punches, Germany has no time to lose. But there's a big problem.
After years of neglect, the military is ageing and shrinking, with the Armed Forces Commissioner warning it has too little of everything.
Fertig, go.
Germany needs to find around 20,000 more soldiers in the next few years. And that's where young people come in. This camp offers teenagers an insight into what it takes to be in the military. With conscription currently off the table, the military is having to find other ways to attract recruits. Not an easy task in a country where history's left many inherently wary of war. The war in Ukraine has forced Germany's hand. Defence is once again a focus. But it's also a dividing line, a boundary that many here don't want to cross. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News.
They are thousands shouting slogans in the centre of Bratislava, sending a message to their Prime Minister Robert Fico, whose policies have been heavily criticised for being pro-Russian as he seeks closer ties with Moscow. The leftist Prime Minister's recent remarks on a foreign policy change, suggesting Slovakia's withdrawal from the EU and NATO, have angered many.
The reason I came here is very simple. I want to live in Slovakia, which belongs to the European Union. I don't want to live in Russia.
Though Robert Fico has denied making such comments, for some Slovakians the threat of a radicalisation of power seems palpable. Since he was elected for the fourth time in October 2023, Fico is one of the few European Union leaders who has drawn closer to the Kremlin, travelling to Moscow last December to meet with President Putin and halting military aid deliveries to Ukraine. The Slovak Prime Minister, who survived an assassination attempt in May 2024, has also accused opponents of preparing a coup in the country in an increasingly tense political climate marked by weeks of anti-government protests where many are calling on him to resign.
Today, all free and peaceful, but dissatisfied citizens must unite to ensure that we are not swallowed by a Russian-style dictatorship in the near future. Slovakia is Europe. Resign.
This wave of rallies, which took place across 41 different locations in Slovakia, is the largest since the 2018 demonstrations sparked by the murder of a journalist investigating corruption in the country. The ensuing political crisis ended with the collapse of Robert Fico's previous government.